Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
We are recording before the end of a game week, James, but we are pretty much most of the way through game week 20. 20 on the board.
How has it been for you, sir?
Not great. I mean, it's a red arrow. It's a very small red arrow as it stands. I have one player still to go. It started pretty well in terms of Saturday. So I decided to make a transfer. I'd already made one move earlier in the week, which was to move on Cunha for Chris Wood. I am a bit disappointed that I didn't double check on and maybe think about Jimenez a little bit more, because I had been thinking about Jimenez as a Pedro replacement, and I think there's a lesson in this. The reason I looked at Jimenez as a Pedro replacement was price and Wood versus Cunha, because they were closer to each other in price point, and I never looked at Jimenez for Cunha, though Chris Wood could still score today, so let's not panic on that. On Saturday morning, James, I decided to tune into my favourite FPL expert on his deadline stream. And there were people galore. Should I sell Jota for Gordon? Should I sell Fernandes for Gordon? It was basically anybody for Gordon.
Yeah.
Knowing that you obviously had a
no team
going out.
I was going to say a child in goal, but he's 26. So
and you did
right.
say that you would do it for free, but you wouldn't do it for a hit, which I completely understood.
You'd be 2 points up, wouldn't you? So you needed Gordon to return twice, I think, for the hit really to
work. But I looked at it as, if I'm making that move, why would I go from Jota to Gordon? Because I want Jota to do well. I actually want to own Jota as a good FPO asset. I looked at it over 4 to 5 weeks, and I decided that the fixtures for the both of them over those 4 weeks were probably much of a muchness. They both had a little bit difficult, bit good. So I thought Gordon over 4 weeks, fine, I'll do it. His price is only going to go one way. Jota's is only going to go one way. And it gave me one added option, which was if I decide that I want to use slot for my assistant manager in Game Week 24, then I can do that because I was tripled up on Liverpool. And I don't see myself adding another third Liverpool. So I thought, you know what, let's do it. And obviously it's paid off this week. My returnees so far, Isak and Gordon from the game against yourself. Cole Palmer did particularly well. I don't care about the dropped clean sheets for Guardiola and Lewis, though if we're going to lose 4-1, we may as well lose 4-0 and give me some FPL points, if I'm honest with you.
West Ham stitching up your game week. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that when we get into the games. But yeah, I missed out to nothing at the back from Gabriel, double City, Guardiola, Lewis, and obviously Trent got a 0-pointer yesterday. Semenyo just a 3-pointer. Mo Salah, everybody has as captain, like it's irrelevant, his points. Highlight of the weekend, I, for the second time this season, got goalkeeper points with Marcus Flecken. His name's
why, don't you?
It's just Mark. Why?
He never had to make a save.
Which is surprising. It's the second game week in a row that he's made a low number of saves. But normally he's always getting save points, but not clean sheets. So yeah, happy to get some points off Mark Flecken. Interestingly, like the other move that I was considering was Flecken to Raya and Rico Lewis down to a cheaper defender. But then looking at it, like Flecken's been all right and Raya's not particularly been tearing up trees in the last kind of 10, 15 game weeks anyway. Arsenal conceded again. So I've gone cold on trying to get to double Arsenal defence, if I'm honest with you. And I'm glad that I kept that one transfer back. I'm pretty glad that I got Gordon in. He did look lively until he got that whack in the face, and I think that affected him a little bit. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with it, but I am on a red arrow of like 30k places. Chris Wood could easily fix that for me. Had City kept a clean sheet, I'd be on a green arrow. So yeah. What about you? Any good?
I have heard, by the way, there is significant snow in Wolverhampton this morning if the FPL community wants to get panicking again.
I hear there's significant snow all over England in bits and pieces, but you know where to go if you want a weather-related reporting all around the grounds is
Mr. Andy Martin.
Yeah, FPL tactician. He gets to all the stadiums. Like he's got a teleporter machine or something. He manages
Did you see?
to.
I don't know what language it was, but
I'm pretty sure it's Romanian. I feel like it's Romanian.
FPL Volo had clipped a picture of Anfield in snow and inserted Andy Martin in it.
Yeah,
and one of
genius.
This media company out in wherever it was picked up the photo Romania, and put it in their article. It's incredible.
I mean, following on from Boona the week before or what have you, it's amazing how I just like the caption. It said photo brackets Twitter. If you look at it on the news article, like when you have to reference wherever you've taken stuff from, photo and then said brackets Twitter.
Oh dear, incredible.
No, the game probably go on today, won't it? Just the same as it did yesterday. How many points are you on, James?
It's not been good for me. One less than you, but I'm all out. So 52 for me. My game week started very well, 4 minutes in, with Dominic Solanke's brilliant diving header. But nothing really to speak of for me from there because the returns were Salah captain, Palmer and Isak, which all three kind of kind of irrelevant basically. So 52 for me, all out. It's a drop from 16k to 23k. That'll obviously get worse tonight unless Chris Wood can find himself a red card. So yeah, not a good week, but we move, and I've got kind of moves that I want to do. I think I told you last week I was very close to going Jota to Gordon on the Sunday night, I think it was last week, and I only had 0.1 to do it. So if I let it go, it was gone unless it become a -4. And I think coming up to the deadline, I said that on my deadline show, I regretted not pulling the trigger on that and going for it because I also felt it was probably inevitable that I'd end up buying Gordon going into this week. That's probably what's going to happen. 2-3s, Semenyo up to Gordon would be the plan. Or I just go Jota to Gordon and move something else. But yeah, I don't suppose anybody is in Twitter this week saying, what do you think the value is of Trent this week, James? I don't suppose anyone wants to ask that question this week. Yeah, Trent to Konate and then Semenyo to Gordon is the sort of thing I've got in mind. But I want to wait because the information from the Carabao Cup semi-finals and the weekend's FA Cup games and then the draw is particularly important for those saying, when are we going to talk about chips? Yeah, next Monday, after we've got the FA Cup third round games out the way.
And obviously we've got Carabao Cup semis this week as well.
Well, they're big games, aren't they? I mean, if you take Gordon, he might end up playing twice this week. He probably doesn't start against Bromley. I think they've got at the weekend. But he's still got to get through the Arsenal game tomorrow night, hasn't he? So, yeah, I don't really want to be rushing to go early on players that I think have still got a game to go this week. That's my take at the moment.
If I look at my game week 21 kind of bus team, all the players that were on my bench this week need to come into my team. Lewis Hall's got Wolves at home. Morgan Rogers got Everton. And João Pedro's got Ipswich. Which means what? Do I take Chris Wood and bench him? Do I get Rico Lewis and bench him? Lewis and Semenyo, I think I can bench. Brentford away. Semenyo has got Chelsea away. Chris Wood, at any point you don't really want to bench, but it's Liverpool. So I've got a bit of depth there where, I don't need to force any moves. And I'm quite happy with the team moving forward because I've got triple Newcastle already there for the Wolves at home game. Bournemouth at home for Chelsea's okay. Nottingham Forest is okay for the Liverpool guys. Goalkeeper, Flecken's got City at home, but he'll at least get me a save point or two. That
definitely.
So so I've got a bit of depth, if you know what I mean. So I'm not even worried about forcing anything just in case of price drops or changes or anything like that.
Yeah, I've got good defensive depth. Even if I move Trent, I'll probably be bust with like Castagne at West Ham and Cole to Bournemouth as like my two defensive players on the bench. At the moment, I've got it bust with Solanke on the bench in the North London derby as well, which would mean playing Jota again. Obviously, I need to evaluate that as this week goes on.
Once you've got information, you can make a better call on Jota.
Well, exactly that. What if Gakpo or Diaz gets injured on Wednesday night or something? Then it's like, oh my God, I'm delighted I've got him. So although you're looking at it and you're going, yeah, this is beginning to look problematic, they obviously weren't good yesterday as well. So that might change things up for them in forthcoming games as well. I kind of want to keep Jota around to make sure the decision is right. I was saying this a lot in the build up to last week. The period of 23 to 25 is way more important on my Liverpool player than the period of now to 22. It's like what if I sell Jota now and then I land in 23 and it's like shit, Jota was the one I wanted. So I kind of want to keep that in at the moment. Another thought in terms of moving Trent and just going, yeah, to Kanai, that's one option. I could go to Munoz as another thing I was thinking, and then maybe Solanke to Gakpo in a couple of weeks and just go, right, I'm going with three of Liverpool attackers for, we assume the double is still going to be 24 or 25. The thing with Solanke is he will be consistent. He's not going to go off massive. I'm never going to put the armband on him or anything like that. But Tottenham's fixtures, once you get the North London derby out the way, do look really good. They actually go top of my ticker game, which 22 to 26. So don't mind having something offensive from Tottenham hanging about. It just looks really ugly going into the derby. We're probably getting smashed, right?
Yes,
you don't
probably.
need to it. I know, yeah.
Yeah, no, probably. I just think Arsenal obviously slipped up again at the weekend when they had the opportunity to make up some points on Liverpool. So don't rule yourself out totally. And also, we ruled you out.
It's not even ordinarily, because a lot of people are saying to me like play João Pedro or X other on my deadline stream, and I was pretty much all of them saying just play João Pedro. That he's ended up with a dodgy penalty with the return. But it also don't, I get it, a lot of people have double Arsenal defence, not want to play João Pedro against it. That would be my circumstance with Solanke, right?
Yeah,
so it's conflicting. I'm not going to get returns from all of them, am I?
No. Indeed. Good. Should we talk about some of these games and James, as we do each and every week? Do you have the schedule to hand, James? We always talk about letting people know earlier in the pod what they've got to look forward to for the rest of the week. Always forget to do it, but this time around I have remembered.
Public service announcement, as many of you would have seen.
Yes, let's talk about that first.
Well, that leads into the content this week anyway. Public service announcement, as those might have seen last night on socials. Our Leicester City correspondent, Aaron Lagor, has stepped down as our Leicester City correspondent. Love Aaron. He's been an absolutely brilliant contributor for us. Aaron just didn't feel he had the time in the same way as he'd had previously. So Aaron is very much part of our family and always welcome to anything we ever do in the future. He's a super lad, genuinely someone I count on as a friend. So Aaron, big love to you and the fam, mate. Yep. I have anointed/appointed the new Leicester City correspondent. Many of you will know who that is. It's Sam Martin, who will be very familiar to many of you on socials, and I'm sure most people associate Sam as being a big Leicester City fan. So Sam's going to take over that role. I recorded with Sam last night to talk about his experience as a Leicester City fan. We talked the historicals about hitting the kind of foot of League One, the title win, the FA Cup win, the Champions League near misses, and then we talk obviously what's going on currently with the team as well. That will be out for you tomorrow. Wednesday, Clayton's back for the Clayton and James show with myself, which will include a review of tonight's Monday Night Football and the Arsenal-Newcastle game from tomorrow night. Clash of correspondence this week is Manchester United versus Southampton with Gary Robinson and Matt Samuel on Thursday. I'll be streaming Friday with Ask James. I think it's 2 o'clock is the planned time for that. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Our podcast for intermediate plus tier patrons this week. Q&A today. One of our patrons, Alex Trembath's hosting an FA Cup quiz tomorrow. Tottenham Wednesday. We've got an FA Cup preview me and Clates are doing on Friday. We're going to have a little bit of focus on some of the smaller clubs still in the competition, and also available for our basic plus tier patrons on Thursday, Money in Football, about Ineos, Suj, which I know you've been very keen to do.
I think plenty of people want to hear about Ineos, and I think it's specifically looking at penny pinching Manchester United. Looking forward to that. You don't want to swap Wednesday and Thursday so you can talk about the Carabao Cup?
No, I've put that into the advanced tier schedule for Thursday is me talking Tottenham, which at least segue.
Yeah.
My Saturday was okay, Suj.
I know, and so was mine, and this is bizarre because we both lost. Just to wrap up on that, as James mentioned, the additional content goes out to our patrons. If you want to do support the show, patreon.com/planetfpl, you get additional shows. You get James's fixture planning spreadsheet. You get a Slack community where you can ask questions. We get prize leagues. There's a whole bunch of benefits of being a patron, as well as just the basic thing of keeping the lights on. So we'd love to have you over there as part of the community. If not, do us a favor, just hit the like button. If you are enjoying this podcast, and if you want to hear more from us, then just subscribe to the channel. We don't really kind of push to get to our 100,000 subscribers, James, because it probably take us another 5 years. But you know, all the subs in the world do help. So yeah, go and smash it. Right. I would say, James, you were expected to get battered by Newcastle, and you lost. But I was impressed. I watched your game. I was impressed. We did get battered by City, but I was fairly happy. Man United were expected to get battered by Liverpool, overperformed. It did feel like a weekend. You look at Chelsea, drop points. You look at Arsenal, drop points. Teams that you thought would lose or lose badly ended up across the board being a surprising weekend that once again maybe shows the depth that we have in the Premier League. But yeah, I think with the team that you had out, you can't really fault the effort, application, and particularly the second half. I thought Spurs looked the more likely to score probably for the first 15 or 20 minutes. After that, Newcastle always had the opportunities on the counter, which you expect them to be able to do. But that first 15, 20 minutes in the second half, I thought you looked the better team, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, I think to come away from that, you got to come away with pride, right?
Forget all that, Suj. I've got a new goalkeeper.
Listen, until you see him,
that's the highlight of my week. That's the highlight of my year so far.
Until you see him in between the sticks with his gloves on and actually playing football. He's a £12.5 million keeper. You got it from the Czech Republic. He's young, right? He's 21. What's his name?
Anthony Kinski.
No, Kinski. From Slavia Prague. I did see that. Your goalkeeper, what's his name?
Trey.
The one that played at the weekend.
Oh, Austin. Brandon Austin. Yeah.
Austin. He did all right.
Yeah, Brandon did fine.
Yeah, like
I've seen some Tottenham fans saying,
like, what? Just I don't really watch you guys enough to know how good or bad Forster is. But
I would much rather Austin played than Forster in any case. I mean,
my thought when I was watching the game was then, like, what does he do in training? Because obviously you've seen 90 minutes, right? You don't see training day in, day out, week in, week out. So what is Austin not doing in training that puts him ahead of Forster? Or is it just because Forster's got more experience that they're going with Fraser Forster?
Although he made a couple of decent saves at the weekend, I think Austin's shot stopping is particularly weak. And I don't think you've seen, just from one game, I don't think you've really
that's the problem.
Seen that.
But on Saturday, he did all right. And
I
think
did absolutely fine. Wasn't quite man of the match, I don't think, as Ali McCoist appointed during the game. Nah. But no, Brandon did absolutely fine. And I knew he'd be fine because he's quite comfortable on the ball. That's the big thing in terms of signing Kinski is, again, the kind of reports I've had is there might be a little bit of concern about his shot stopping, but in terms of his style of play, that's way more befitting for us as a team to be able to play the way we want to, because clearly he can sweep a keep. Clearly he is very comfortable on the ball. He is going to give people a few heart attacks, but that's who we are, mate, right? We've not been able to be who we can be since we won at Manchester City because a goalkeeper can't come outside the penalty area, right? That's huge for us. So I was happy before the game had even started on Saturday that was getting prioritised, because genuinely, January the 2nd, I was like, where's my goalkeeper? January the 3rd, where's my goalkeeper? So to get that news, and during the deadline stream on Saturday, you got it. I was absolutely delighted to get him in. Hopefully he'll play against Liverpool on Wednesday night. I'd see no reason why he wouldn't go straight in. If he's not, yeah, I would rather Austin played than Fraser Forster, and we at least try and play something that's more like our style. So that's good news. However, we are clearly still absolutely broken defensively. And I think everybody knew that the club or the team had the shits going into this. It's never happened to Tottenham before that. Presumably it wasn't lasagna on Thursday or Friday that had caused
I was going to say, what was for dinner? Bit of the old Italian.
We kind of got the news on Friday night that Forster and Gray were definitely out. Now, Archie Gray played. So fair game.
And there was rumours around Dragoshin. He played.
Dragoshin and Maddison, yeah. But Dragoshin came off at half time. Ange said he had like nothing left to give. We finished with Jed Spence and Archie Gray as centre backs with Region at left back. I mean, there's not a lot you can do with that if that's what it's going to be. In terms of the injured players defensively, most of them expected back probably for around about game week 23. Udogi's going to be longer. That's going to be more like sort of game week 26, 27 or so. So if we can get some centre backs fit soon, that'll help. There's definitely big rumours that Tottenham are trying to buy another attacking player this week. So they're making moves in the market. Yeah, the performance was okay, considering. Listen, there's never a for us to play at home against anybody, whatever the circumstance, there's never a happy with a defeat. But sometimes I say this a lot, right? Football's about hope and having something to believe in. And you couldn't watch the team on Saturday and think under the circumstances they weren't really trying and putting the effort in for each other, for the manager, for the fans. Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't great, but I think people recognised the situation we were in. The opponent's been absolutely flying. I mean, we give Newcastle a much better game than Manchester United give them, for example. There's some explanations for why that happened later in this podcast. So, yeah, I mean, look, clearly it's really bad at the moment, but we're just kind of going through a phase where the cup games are kind of way more important. We're not going to be in danger of getting relegated. We're not going to qualify for the Champions League. The league season is kind of going to be a little bit of a nothingness. Wednesday's more important, Sunday's more important. Then next Wednesday's obviously important because of who the opponent is. But our league season is absolutely irrelevant, really.
And no one's buying your assets from fantasy either, really, with Arsenal as the next game.
No,
There's a
definitely
reasonable
not
run
this
a bit
week.
later, but
Yeah, all I'd say is once you hit sort of the Everton game week 22, like Everton, Leicester, Brentford, Manchester United, Ipswich, and then City and Bournemouth at home before the blank, like that's a for the attacking guys. I think that's a
if you
pretty
can
decent run.
get a couple of players back, then I think there is consideration just a couple of weeks away from now. We'll have a lot
Yeah,
more information around then as well.
I think Solanke's obviously it will continue to tick over consistently, as I already said. Johnson is the one who, if he gets the minutes, will be really interesting for fantasy. But there is no guarantee that's going to happen. As I said, Tottenham are definitely trying to buy another attacking player, and they're looking for someone versatile who can play in different attacking positions. On Son Madison not starting, Ange said he kind of wanted experience later in the game, and I felt that we played quite intelligently with our heads because they clearly didn't have the physical capacity under the circumstance of sounds like half the team was sick, right? And so I felt those guys came on and gave a little bit more experience to what was happening, gave us control. It did help that we were losing, obviously enabled us that control. I did think Newcastle kind of missed a trick because I think we were there for the taking. But at the same time, they did the job professionally, right? Really, other than sort of Madison's kind of long range effort that went just wide, and from my angle, I thought it was in. And the weird one where Johnson and Reguilon smashed it both across the box and neither show on XG because technically they'll go down as crosses. Newcastle kind of dealt with it pretty well and quite professionally. So I think both teams could come out of it pretty happy. I know our Newcastle guys were really, really pleased and kind of anxious going into it because everybody thought that they were going to win. And I understand that perspective of it.
Look, any time you win 5 games in a row in this league is solid, man. Is really good. And then the last two of them is Man United and Spurs. Whatever the state, they're still tougher games. So
and you look at the fixtures to come for them and think there's more to come, right? Wolves,
there's 4
Bournemouth,
good fixtures now.
Fulham, all at home in 3 of the next 4, and the away game is Southampton.
Who just got smashed by Brentford, remember? So,
Not for the first time this season. So, yeah, I think I'd almost be being stubborn if I didn't look to put Anthony Gordon in my team this week. The best 3 by a distance is Hall, Gordon, and Isak. I think on Jacob Murphy, lots of people keep asking. I think there's 2 points to this, and you can spin your narrative either way. Definitely, Newcastle were looking to buy a right winger. And that has got to play into your thinking. Historically, though, Eddie Howe does tend to integrate his new signings slower into the team than perhaps many would expect on the outside. So they could buy someone, and it could be that Murphy still plays for a prolonged period. At his price, if he's going to continue to play, that's absolutely fine as an enabler. But there's enough danger there would mean it's not a consideration at all for me. Botman being back is going to help them defensively. I also think Gimrez and Joel Linton, if you really can't get towards Gordon, are also worth considering because how Tonali's playing is completely freeing them up. And I think in games, particularly at St James's, you can expect those two to get involved in the attacking returns as well. Newcastle should finish top 5 from here. I don't think there's much doubt about that, I don't think. Importantly, the majority of the squad's fit. Now that Botman's back, it's just Pope, basically.
Share comes back from suspension.
Heavily linked with James Trafford as well. So Newcastle trying to do some business this month. Isak is a captaincy consideration for me next week.
I would agree with you as well. There's probably a conversation to have when we get closer to it, but I don't think it's as straightforward as just whack it on Salah. Wolves at home, I think, is decent, but let's see what Wolves do today because James, they haven't conceded a goal under their new manager until the last game. What's it? They've only conceded one goal,
Two and
two
three,
goals.
isn't it? But then
Yeah,
it was
both
Leicester
both against
first.
you.
United went down to 10 men.
Yeah, I want to
Tottenham.
see what I see today. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it could well be a consideration. Aston Villa 2, Leicester 1. Home win for Leicester. Obviously missing Morgan Rogers, who was suspended. They'll be happy to just get the points here, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, first half sounded like it was just a complete non-event. I do think that Watkins, there's been a lot of talk about Watkins. I think those who've gone are pretty disappointed, and I can certainly understand that. I think Leicester had shown, and you'll hear Sam talk about this tomorrow, had shown in some of the recent games that there is slight improvements now defensively. Remember, they had all them shots they were conceding,
Yeah,
Leicester.
it was like nearly
But
75 or 80 in like three
but
games or
but there
something.
is something to be said, and I think you've even seen the benefit of that with, say, Manchester United this week as well. Actually having some time on the training field, start doing your own thing. Remember, Van Nistelrooy walked in, and it was like, "Oh, you're playing West Ham on Tuesday, and then Brighton Sunday, so you're not training and preparing properly because you've got so many games up and coming." So it might be he's beginning to implement stuff that's improving them a little bit defensively. I think although they got well beat in the end at Liverpool, I think they took confidence from that game. Liverpool were worried until Gakpo equalised, I think, in that game. It always felt like it was going to come, but it was definitely improvements in that. I think that meant they were always liable to defend a bit deeper. Watkins, loves space in behind. Rogers, a really good ball carrier, kind of missed to draw people out of position as well. And ultimately, Watkins should have still scored with this mad kind of scramble right towards the end of the game. So if you're a Watkins owner, I certainly wouldn't be panicking with Everton up next. It's Arsenal away 22, but then they've got a good run of fixtures after that as well. West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich as a decent free following the trip to Arsenal in 22 as well. Rodgers being back will be good for them. They've got a big game Friday night in the cup against yourselves, Suj. Duran obviously be back for suspension next week as well. And I guess the further concern and complication for Watkins owners will be that Duran, we think, there is a small chance that he does get an additional game ban, possibly because of this reaction after he'd been sent off to kicking up the water bottle and stuff. I don't think he will. But you do look at next week and think Everton Wednesday and then Arsenal Saturday, and there is an inclination to think he'll definitely want Watkins to play at Arsenal. That would be my instinct on that.
Yeah.
So
You've got Rodgers. You're playing him next week, I'm assuming, against Everton.
Oh, yeah. And if you've got
doubt about
Watkins,
it.
you're playing it as well. I think, yeah, absolutely. Pau Torres is out for a couple of months. Probably means Tyrone Mings is going to get a prolonged run now. They won this ultimately as well, though, because for complete fuck up from James Justin, unfortunately, as well, where he had several opportunities to play a pass out or clear the ball and didn't. It was Leon Bailey's first goal of the season, I think, actually. Such I think I want to say. So yeah, not quite routine for Villa. They've also got to manage obviously the final games in the Champions League over this month as well. So you are going to get a bit of rotation. But if I was a Watkins owner, I wouldn't be running off. In fact, anything I had from Villa, I wouldn't be running off. Rodgers, I'm beginning to look at now as kind of like a real long-term hold for the majority of this season, I think.
Yeah,
Leicester,
I would agree.
no interest at the moment. Next two games, Palace and Fulham at home, feel particularly important.
Good. Let's talk about Bournemouth 1, Everton 0. I can always kind of, I get my weather gauge on Everton and where they're at from Sean, obviously, at Spirit_Blues if you want to follow him. And it is bad for Everton at the moment. I think it's more, from what I get from Sean's tone, let's say, is just the performances and everything around it. Like, do I think Everton are at risk of getting relegated? Probably not still, because I think there's going to end up being three teams worse than them and Dyche will pull it out the bag. But they're not happy with the style of play or what they're giving up. And when you look at it in the end, they've gone and lost at Bournemouth. Travers in goal for Bournemouth had to make no saves in the entire game, whereas Pickford's had to make 7. It's not reflected in the XG as much. But yeah, Bournemouth, easy win, really.
Yeah, I think we have to consider here that a change might be coming for Everton.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I didn't think you've talked about it with the new owners and stuff as well, and I'm like, looking at it, but Sean Dyche has always just been a safe and steady pair of hands. But we saw it with Burnley when they went down; they stuck with him. He got them back up again and stuff. But I don't know. I'm more towards your line of thinking now, where new ownership, time to evolve. Yeah, maybe they'll make that move. Like the next couple of games for them, they've got Villa, then they play yourselves, and then Brighton, who are not bad. So they've got a tough run now.
I'm absolutely convinced, despite the scoring problems, and I'll give you a brilliant stat in a minute. I'm convinced that they would stay up under Sean Dyche because I think we've seen recently, like the Chelsea, Arsenal, City games, Everton will pull you out a result like when you don't expect it, and these little things will add up and help. I'm more nervous for them if they change. Because if they change and they get someone in, it's like, yeah, you're going to play expansive football. If they start conceding a lot of goals, they're in massive trouble. Because no matter how you play, there isn't enough quality in that team that's going to, oh, yeah, we're going to win games 3-2. You're not. And that makes me a little bit concerned for them. I saw something this morning that suggested the Freaking Group, what they tend to do is they won't sack someone till they know what they've got. So if someone suddenly it's like, oh, Sean Dyche is going to go, you can expect an announcement within like 24 hours or so. I can see Mourinho there, by the way.
Wow.
Definitely.
I mean, look, Ancelotti managed there, and I think he's possibly the best manager of this century. So, sure, if Mourinho ends up there, sure.
Yeah. The statistic I want to give you is they've scored 5 goals in their last 10 league games. But that's not the best bit of the statistic. The best bit of the statistic is that across their last 10 league games, Craig Dawson has scored 40% of their goals.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to stick with them for quite a while until they can start putting the ball in the back of the net. Is he Everton's second top league goal scorer?
Oh, I don't know. Something like that.
I think Craig Dawson is Everton's second top league goal scorer this season.
The thing is, their fixtures, I think, and this is interesting, their fixtures, I think, are pretty good. And people will naturally be drawn towards them because we obviously expect the Liverpool game to be added to Gameweek 24 or 25. And yes, it's kind of a coin flip at this stage in terms of which one. So Pickford attracts attention as a consistent goalkeeper, 5 million. You know, even in that Liverpool game, he's going to have to make some saves. So the potential for a haul is always there from Jordan Pickford. Mykolenko cheap, 4.3. Play it when you want, don't play it when you want. The attacking guy is just absolutely. I know people are going to end up looking at Calvert-Lewin again because Brea stubbed his. Would he get injured kicking the ground or something at the weekend in a laughable incident that's not particularly laughable?
I would not look at Everton attacking until Dwight McNeil was back. Like without Dwight McNeil, I don't think they have any creativity at all.
Yeah, Dwight McNeil will be, when he's available, he's dipped to like 5.2 now. So if people want to have a bit of that around the double, it's fine. I think the fixtures are good, right? Villa, Tottenham, Brighton, Leicester, Crystal Palace, Manchester United, Brentford, Wolves, and up till the blank in 29. Like as a run, I don't think, things like Villa, Tottenham, and Manchester United are 3 of their next 4 home games. They're not as scary as they might have been. I think they're fine. They're arguably kind of green / kind of grey fixtures or so at the moment. So Mykolenko's not far from my thoughts. Neither's Pickford. Might be more if I need to find a little bit more money. I think, right, do you know what? The Jota thing hasn't worked and I want to get towards like Jota back to say Mbeumo. Raya to Pickford would be the sort of thing that maybe does the job and then gets me the extra fixture from them, for example. But we should also factor in here that, particularly say with Mykolenko, is there anything to say Everton won't buy a left back this window? And whenever you're buying someone at the moment in FPL, I think you've got to double check yourself on that. And definitely, they've got 3 right backs. They ain't got many left backs. I know Ashley Young can also go and play at left back, but they don't have any natural cover on that side. So if they wanted to add something defensively, it could well be in the left back position.
I just don't know if they've got any money.
If you go there.
Do they have any money?
But loans, whatever, loans.
Yeah, perhaps.
Can't go and get a loan from somewhere.
Let's talk about Semenyo, James. You're looking at moving him on potentially. He had 3 shots on target and 1 off. So again, he's in and around getting his shots off. He's not in and around any points though.
Yeah, his numbers are great, and they were again at the weekend. And actually, I know I kind of said the first game I got him in, I was disappointed, and it didn't feel right to me. Then in the second game, I felt the same. In the game since, I've been way more encouraged by him what I've seen. And there was encouragement watching bits of this one as well. Really should have returned, XG of 0.5, XA 0.24, so an XGI of 0.74 in a game. I mean, if you told me that before the game, it's not a chance I wouldn't have not been starting him, right? However, now the fixtures, Chelsea
Awful.
away, Newcastle away, Forest at home, Liverpool at home, that next four, the timing is now to move it on, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I think so.
I just
So
don't know
it's,
where people. I mean, I suppose at that price, popular players have been Ahmad, Enzo, or Murphy, or even if you've come off
I
Rodgers
think
previously and you want to go back to Rodgers, you can do that as well. There are off points for Semenyo, I
Well,
suppose.
Diallo swings now, right? If you've got Semenyo and you're looking at Diallo at home with Southampton this week, that's going to be a big tempter now, isn't it? Diallo's got a
Yeah,
10-pointer yesterday. So I can see Semenyo to Diallo if people need to stay in that valuation. I'm obviously looking to take a Semenyo up towards an Anthony Gordon, right? That would be my idea. If I do need to stay at that value as someone who already owns Rodgers, yeah, it's Diallo
yeah.
that would be where I end up going. So I won't rule that out as an impossibility because there's worse things you can do in this format than just attack Southampton players, right? I think for those who've got the likes of Kirkes and House and no panic, chances are you are going to bench them quite a bit over forthcoming weeks. Whether you can do that is obviously dependent on your squad. Kepa, by the way, missed out because his other half gave birth to twins. He was at the game. I'm pretty sure I saw him in the dugout during the course of the game. He's obviously ineligible this coming weekend as well. I think he's one for later in the season to continue to keep an eye on. Evan Nilsson owners, I think, will be a bit twitchy and be looking probably to move that on with the fixtures
Well,
coming up
with
as well, I should
Jimenez's
imagine.
haul yesterday, it looks like an interesting sideways move
Yeah, I just
because
think
Fulham still have the fixtures.
Bournemouth players were definitely a hold for Everton at home. Now they're a holder or sell, depending on where you're at.
Yep. Good. Let's talk about Crystal Palace 1, Chelsea 1. Disappointment from Chelsea again. You mentioned that had 2 points from the last 4 games. Is shocking, surprising. Like Cole Palmer still popped up with the points, though people will be getting twitchy. I mean, look, Levi Colwill, you had a clean sheet off him in the first week that you owned him, James, but benched it, and then nothing since. So defensively, not interesting at all, even though Sanchez back in goal.
Might be.
What?
Well, the kind of first thing to cover off here is the really interesting comments from Wesley Fofana. So Wesley Fofana released a statement last night saying I should be back in 4 to 6 weeks. This was after FPL had flagged him up till game week 38 because Enzo Maresca had said there's a possibility he doesn't play again this season. Fofana specifically came out in his statement and said, I don't know why Maresca has said that. Now, it could be that he's trying to put some pressure on because he wants a new centre back because he's not happy with the likes of Disasai. Badia Shield's injured at the moment as well. He's played at the weekend Josh Anshimpong, who's 4.0 in FPL. And if you're looking for a 4.0 in the short term, I think there's every chance he's going to play a few games here. And you look at Bournemouth at home, Wolves at home, West Ham at home in 24, you might get a little bit of use out of it. I guess there's the caveats to you might be blocking yourself off of free Chelsea players.
They don't keep clean sheets.
They don't keep clean sheets. Fofana might be back in a month to 6 weeks, and then that obviously removes him back out the team. But with Badiashile and Fofana out, there is a chance here that yes, he may begin, and it's not confirmed, he may begin to have favouritism now over Disasai and Adarabioyo, possibly. Wouldn't go there myself personally, but I guess it's a 4.0 player to potentially throw into the hat. No one wants to go Sanchez now after he got left out against Ipswich because you look further down the line and you go, so they've got at home in game week 27 and 28, Southampton and Leicester. So could Jorgensen play one of them? Yep. So no one wants to make that mistake anymore. Palmer's Palmer. I think Enzo Fernandez owners are beginning to look elsewhere, and I can understand that. That's now 4 games without a return after kind of a big period of 6 games consecutively returning. You wouldn't have expected them to get nothing over this period. And Nicholas Jackson owners are certainly getting frustrated as well. Was it one return in 7? Is it, Suj?
Yeah, 1 in 7 now. 1 in 7. We said yeah.
So,
And
I
the
mean,
thing is, like, he's shot up a lot in price, right? You bought him cheap, 7.4, 7.5. Did you buy him at?
no, not that cheap. That's 7.9
Okay.
or something, I think, Suj.
Oh wow, okay. He's up to 8.2. He's now down to 8.1 because he's had a price drop this week. yeah, it doesn't seem the place to go to find value at the moment. So yeah, I'm not interested. I have enough money to turn Semenyo into Jadon Sancho, and obviously he's getting a lot of plaudits for the
Oh,
assist and
what
the
an
movement.
assist!
And
That's brilliant.
he started 5 of the last 6. I think I want to say now 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 of the last 6, during which he's got and if you include the game before, he's got 2 goals and an assist in that time. I think he's found his place in that team now. I think he's definitely cemented as first choice on the left. Obviously, Mudryk isn't going to be coming in to take his place anytime soon, is he? So I don't think I would do it. I think I'd go down to Ahmad, bank the $1 million and use that $1 million elsewhere. But there will be people that are looking at it potentially. He is gathering some momentum. We know his capability. He's a good player. So that's the other one. But for me, I don't see myself adding a second or a third Chelsea at the moment. Crystal Palace were flavour of the week and kind of flavour of the month at the moment amongst the community, I would say, particularly Munoz, another 2-pointer. Sarr, no returns for him either, though Clayton with his Eze got another assist.
Yes.
We need to get that guy on the pod.
He did.
But yeah, I don't know. Munoz is still an interesting shout, you know. All I hear is his positioning is great. He's getting forward. He's really attacking. Is he just going to be annoying, though, and always threaten and never deliver?
Possibly, but I mean, his underlines are good, right? Like he's had an expected goal involvement of over 1 over the last 3 games. That's what he is. So I think that ultimately you want clean sheets with it as well, right? But the fixtures coming up are good, right? Kind of identified before into Southampton. Yes, the Chelsea game's ugly. Then the fixtures are still good. Leicester, West Ham, Brentford, Manchester United, Everton, Fulham, Villa, Ipswich at home. That's the run until they go to Newcastle in Gameweek 29. If they go to Newcastle in Gameweek 29. Hopefully they don't, because hopefully Newcastle win the Carabao Cup final. No offence to any certain people listening. So if you want to go there, yeah, Munoz is on radar for me still, 4.7. Sarr, I think he's not at 5.9, but Mateta is as well. Mateta is a really clear potential escape for me from Solanke or Jackson, isn't it? 7.2, scored at the weekend. Those fixtures are good. I think where we had concerns about Nketiah impacting him earlier in the season, I don't think we have those concerns in the same way at the moment. I think how Palace lined up yesterday, bar Trevor Chalobah was ineligible. Sorry, Saturday. He's probably their best team now, actually. I think even with Decore back in it as well. So Mateta is a consideration for me. I think Eze and Sarr, not at this moment. I would still rather go Sarr over Eze at this moment in time. And Munoz is still absolutely on radar for me. And Dean Henderson, I wouldn't even rule out either. Suj. The problem for me with Dean Henderson would be if I downgrade Raya towards Henderson and then they don't play in 29, that's psychologically like, And that's where we say...
You can wait. Just wait for that transfer, you know?
No, but it will have an impact, right? So genuinely, if Newcastle go to the Emirates and win tomorrow night in the Carabao Cup first leg, that is going to have an impact on people's thinking about Crystal Palace players moving forward, unless people definitively know that they want to free hit in Gameweek 29. So the game tomorrow night has an impact on Crystal Palace players. So if Newcastle were to go to the Emirates and win, that's going to play on my mind because that's potentially an extra transfer for me looking at Gameweek 29. And the chances are Liverpool will be in it and I'll need to deal with some other problems, right? And I could be on treble Newcastle as well. There's every chance, even if Newcastle did get to the final, buying Gordon this week, treble Newcastle and treble Liverpool, and that could be the Carabao Cup final, right? Also got like Rodgers. I don't need like Matetas and Munoz's coming with that as well to have to deal with. So you have to factor that in at the moment to your thinking. But yeah, they're top of my ticker over the next 5. I think there's some good assets worth looking at there.
Good. Let's talk about Manchester City 4, West Ham United 1.
Over to you, boss. You started well, apparently, so I heard.
No, we played well throughout the entire game, apart from... We have this thing... Like, do you remember when we played you? And we played okay, but when we made mistakes, it always leads to goals. This is the problem that we have. It's this mental weakness where when we concede, it's just like a deck of cards. But here's the thing. I mean, we've played in the last 4 or 5 years of memory against City. It's probably one of the most fearful games for me because we always get destroyed. And it's always a very difficult watch because it's like watching your team get toyed with how good City are with the ball, and we can just never get near them. I didn't feel like that at all in this game. I actually was chatting to Clayton on text during the game, and I said, Man City are shit. And he said, I'm going to have to clip this up and send it to wherever the unfortunate messages before unfortunate events or something. I said to him, the truth is, even if they beat us 4-0, which I think they might, I still am not impressed with them. So previously, when we've played Man City, we can't get the ball. We just can't. We never get the ball for more than 3 or 4 or 5 passes before they've got the ball back off us, and then we don't see the ball again for 2 minutes. And we get the ball, and we're under so much pressure to do something with it because we get the ball so infrequently against Man City that the pressure increases. We had the ball and passed it around for periods where I was like, this is not the same. Like, they just don't have that intensity to get the ball back off us. Like, we can keep the ball for 30 seconds or a minute here, which I've never seen us be able to do against City before. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with what I saw from West Ham, bar obviously conceding goals. We were poor in front of goal. Kudus felt a little bit snatchy and like the pressure was on him, obviously, to take Jared Bowen's mantle. And when he had a couple of chances, he was either greedy or snatched at it. If he had been able to finish one of his chances prior to City getting ahead, I think it could have been quite different. But it didn't. Despite being 1 down, 2 down, still passing out from the back. And there was quite a few periods of play where we passed out nicely from the back and broke into attack. Somerville was a threat. I thought West Ham played well throughout, other than you make mistakes that lead to goals and City will punish you. So first goal, unfortunate deflection, bang. Second goal, that cross from Savio was like,
yeah.
Haaland, it was easier for Haaland to score than it was to miss.
We spoke last week about sometimes the quality doesn't even have to be great if it's in the right area for him to attack. Yeah. This was both. The delivery was great and in the right area.
That ball, it was easier for him to score than it was for him to miss. The third goal, he finished it really well. And then by that point...
You might be doing Haaland a little bit of a disservice there because he obviously still gets up so high. Most players wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. By the time the ball had got to him, our defenders were on the floor. Like, I don't know if they mistimed their jumps.
Yeah, but I'm saying Haaland meets it easy because he's Haaland and he can do Haaland. That in the air.
No, don't get me wrong.
A lot of players, and with Haaland, you take that sort of thing for granted. Your average forward is maybe not getting there.
Yeah. Third goal, we finished it well. At this point, then it's just like a procession. But I didn't see anything from City. If they came up against a good team, they wouldn't have been able to do what they did against us because we're so weak sometimes when things go wrong at just collapsing. I didn't see anything from Foden that would make me want to buy him. I didn't see anything from De Bruyne that would make me want to buy him. Obviously, Haaland's a very difficult buy for a lot of people because of the price tag. Savio, look, he's a lively threat. I think he's consistently going to be a threat. If he's going to play, he'll always be... He's only one-way minded, right? Which is, let me attack. Let me get a cross in, or let me take my man on, or let me get a shot off. So he's a really interesting asset and an interesting player that I think will continue to return even if City don't do well. But I didn't come away from this game feeling any more like I want to invest in any City assets. In fact, I definitely need to get rid of one of my defensive assets from City because they will continue to leak goals because we did have chances. I mean, we had 17 shots in the game, James. Like, forget the quality, just the volume. When do West Ham ever have 17 shots against Man City? Doesn't happen. Forget the quality or anything. We just don't get in there third enough to have 17 shots. So I wouldn't buy any West Ham, and I also wouldn't buy any City, really, unless Savio. But, is what it is. They still come away 4-1, right? So
there is one important fantasy question here involving West Ham, and that is, do you think Fabianski will be back in goal for your next game in the league at home to Fulham?
Considering the number of goals we've conceded since Areola's been in, I have to say yes.
He's conceded 9 in 2.
Yeah, I think so. And also he pulled off a couple of great saves during that period as well. So his shot stopping is fine, but I think Fabianski comes back in. I
Okay.
do think Fabianski comes back in.
On Savino, 6.5.
Mm.
7 assists now this season, obviously helped by getting three. I mean, he's on 8 attacking returns now for the season, of which five have come in the last 2 game weeks. So, look, when you're posting 27 points in 2 game weeks, that's going to get people's attention. And I think his performances over this Christmas period suggest that he will continue in the team. He's obviously playing on the left at the moment.
So it's 8 attacking returns, you said, this season, but
Yeah, he's
phrase
got
it as
five in the
eight.
last two.
Yeah, but 8 in 12 starts, right? It's not like he's been starting every game. He's only started 12 games, right? And he's obviously only started the last three after a long period
Get
out
that?
and in and out. So he's not had the consistency. I think the thing that he will benefit from is consistency. And
Yes, and
again,
I
I
think I
wonder,
think it's worth saying there is no reason at this point to think that he wouldn't get a run in the team. What I would say is for
he's
me
their
wanting
biggest
to,
threat.
yeah, I'm not questioning, but in terms of actually the power, he's not going to keep getting like goalkeepers drop balls at his feet like
No,
please don't read that the wrong way, like happened at Leicester, and that's where he got his goal from. And that's not going to keep happening. The assists are great, right? But I think it might be a lot more of that assists rather than goals.
yeah, of course. When you got a striker who's so dominant in the box
Well,
like
it's just
Haaland,
I'd want him coming off the right where he can come in and hit the thing on his left foot. That's what I'm saying. If he's going to play
and
on the left,
the
you are
fixtures
looking
as
at
well,
probably
you got
more
to
an
look at.
assister rather than a scorer here.
You might be
Clearly,
buying for Brentford and Ipswich, both away games, but then you're walking into Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool.
yeah.
Those 4 games, I could see City losing all 4 of those. So I just don't think
Oh,
the
I can
timing
see
is
City
right.
losing at Brentford without a doubt. Could definitely see that because Brentford have got the firepower without a doubt. I think Brentford have vulnerabilities defensively, and I think City might find it harder to score against Ipswich than against Brentford. I wouldn't be surprised if that Brentford City game's a bit mad, like a 2-2 or something like that. Pep said after the game, he said it's still not us.
It wasn't like
No.
it's not.
If
And I
anybody
haven't.
thinks that because City have beaten, with all due respect, two of the weaker teams in the league, and in your case, just going there without your best player in Jared Bowen, also your left back and your goalkeeper not available as well. If people overreading that into like City are back, they're not. It doesn't mean that they won't win the next game, but that, as Pep's told you, quite honestly, that he's like, yeah, we're still struggling. That also reminded me of, we should have said it, the Sean Dyche quote, which is I think was final straw for Everton fans as well, when he said, if you look at our run on paper, as if you put wins in there, it's quite good.
That's pretty mad. We should probably
Also, if
do
you
a
put some
special just
goals in
on
there, Sean,
managers.
as well.
Manager madness. I completely avoided talking about your manager, and that will definitely be one for Tottenham
I'll tell you what I will say.
because I think he's just turning into an Aussie Conte.
I
But
thought he was a complete dick after the game, Ange. And I don't know why, because although we lost, the day was like better for everyone. Everybody felt a little bit better. Actually, not again, you're not happy when you lose, but people felt better than I think they felt prior to the game. Let's put it that way, at least. I don't know why he was losing his.
rag,
Yeah, I don't. It just wasn't. It wasn't necessary. So
no, no, no. Let's talk about Southampton nil, Brentford 5. 19-pointer for Mbeumo. Like those that have held through, he's still 32% owned overall in the entire game. James, of course, active is going to be less than that.
it's not that far similar this week. I think actually.
Really.
Yeah, I think so.
Look, they've got City and Liverpool at home in the next two, but 19-pointer, 2 goals and assists, max bonus. Those that have held, I know Andy, Let's Talk held. I saw a brief part of his stream where it's like, how's he managed to get 70 something points? Mbeumo is the difference here, James. And 5-0 away at Southampton. I thought Southampton had shown a couple of bits of signs of improvement against us. They took the lead against Palace. Back down to reality here. Back down to reality here.
Bumo was it was highlighted in pre-season, selling game week 14, right? Pretty much 55 points in the 7 game weeks since, heavily influenced by obviously the 19 pointer at the weekend, and that's the biggest reason that I've had a drop this week is those Bumo returns.
Same
I
for
can't
me.
complain about it, right? Someone asked me on my stream at the weekend what's probably been your highlight of the season. I was like, yeah, probably Bumo's goal against Leicester when I captained him, the cross that found its way in. So, yeah, look, 2 goals, 1 assist. His expected goal involvement in the game was 1.6 high. You obviously expect that with the penalty. With him, you never feel like he's going to miss a penalty. I had like Sky Sports News on while the game was on. It's like penalty to Brentford, and you're like, yeah, goal. Go back to that. Tell me now who's won the penalty, so I can give them the assist in my mind. So he's probably the best penalty taker in the league. I think. Do you trust him? I think Visser is really competitive with him in terms of trying to take talisman stakes. I think that's something that for me has kind of really changed with him. Is I think early in the season we'd have gone, yeah, he's definitely the talisman. Whereas I think it does feel like on a small sample, like a 3-4 game period at any point, Visser might do better than him. And Visser structurally will work much better for me than Mbeumo. It's worth saying. If people want to go and invest in one of those two players, I don't have a problem with it. I wouldn't be like, oh, it's Man City next. We saw vulnerabilities in Liverpool yesterday. They're both at home. They're stronger at home, though only one goal scored in their last two home games against good sides in Forest and Arsenal. Then there's a better run again for Brentford, where I think game week 23, people be if those two do well the next 2 weeks, there'll be a surge for those two players going into game week 23, except for people will be targeting players that have got the double, presuming it happens. Yeah, Boomo and Vis are absolutely, if people want to have, I'm not going to give reasons not to. For me, it's a psychological one where it'd be like, I'm chasing this after they've hauled against Southampton. No, thank you.
I think I could wait till like Gordon's fixtures turn in 25. If you wanted to go a week early in 24, maybe when they got Fulham at home, chaining Gordon onto Mbeumo, because it's again price point, right? Which of your players would you use as the make weight to get to Mbeumo? For me, I don't have anybody at that price point in my midfield other than Gordon. So I don't. It's timing of that between 23 and 25 might be a little bit tricky to pick the right one to go, but I could see myself looking at that move potentially.
Once you hit 24, particularly, and the Tottenham home game, I think there's a period there, sort of 24 to 28, where he'll be very difficult to ignore. And I think this is going to be the case for Visser as well. I think my way round it might be to look more at Visser, knowing structurally with Bumo possibly not going to work for me. By the time I'd like fix Jota, it'd be like, I'm not going Jota to Diaz. I've got Gordon in there. By the time I think, all right, Gordon's going to City in 25, do I want to come off? I think I'd have missed a moment with Bumo maybe. I don't want to be buying Bumo the week after he plays Tottenham. There's an inevitability there. So Visser, I can see me maybe fitting into my structures more likely than Bumo. But yeah, no reason to particularly put people off. I think those who held have probably had better Christmases than most people, right? In the case of particularly with Mbeumo. It's worth saying Visser hadn't returned for a little while, right? He'd had 4 blanks prior to this one, but he should have got probably more than the goal and assist at the weekend. I mean, his underlying numbers are like not far off Bumo's at the weekend. I do wonder that if Visser could be worth there's 1.6 between them. If Visser could be worth the saving moving forward. Defensively, yes, there's a clean sheet this weekend. Great. They've still got too many injuries defensively. I'm pleased for Sepp van den Berg owners that they got signed. I'm pleased for you, Suj, that you got Mark Flecken return. I have no interest in looking at them defensively. For Saints, we'll cover quite a bit more on Clash of Correspondence on Thursday. But I get that question and I'm like, oh, piss off. Yes, they'll get more points than Derby. They have now very much hit the stage now where every team that plays them, even at St Mary's, is thinking, have to beat these.
Yeah.
And that's really, really problematic that teams, you've now got to a level with them where just beating them probably isn't enough for most fans. I beat Southampton 2-1 this weekend. Like people go home unhappy in many, many circumstances. Juric clearly hasn't kind of cleaned that up. I mean, the goals they concede at the end are absolutely disastrous. So, yeah, I think we can write them off now from any chance of staying up. United, Forest, Newcastle, their next 3 as well. Yeah, Blake.
Brighton 1, Arsenal 1. Disappointing for Arsenal as well when obviously they've taken the lead and then conceded the penalty in the second half here.
Penalty for you?
Yeah, sure. I want Liverpool to win the league, so.
Can I just say it's not particularly wanting Liverpool to win the league, it's wanting Arsenal not.
Well, that's for you. I don't have any hate for Arsenal, but I do want to see Liverpool win the league. I just think they've been that good. I mean, I caught up with Clates a bit, and he does his Arsenal bite size, but it really feels like the mood amongst Arsenal fans is very meh right now. The title's gone type mindset.
It's not.
I know it's not, but I'm talking about from their point of view. I really do feel like a lot of disappointed because they're comparing it to the points total from the last two seasons. And we've got to remember they started the last two seasons well and then faded away rather than being chasing, which is quite a different mentality to be in. Yeah.
Okay. The best bit of Arsenal's weekend would have been watching Liverpool and their vulnerabilities yesterday, which is why I really still think Arsenal got a chance. On the penalty, I don't think it is a penalty, but I also can understand why VAR didn't intervene.
We're seeing this more and more and more, where it's like ref's decision. If it's not clear and obvious enough to say you're wrong, they don't do it.
Although Saliba obviously heads the ball, he doesn't head the ball as per se. It kind of comes off the top of his head, and the action is going towards João Pedro. He's a really, really unusual one. Do I think it's a penalty? No, probably not. Most of the time you get away with it, but it's also one VAR aren't going to jump in on and intervene. I think for Arsenal at the moment, it's worth saying, I think Arsenal fans were saying very similar things about Arsenal this time last year. They were really flat at this point last year. They just lost at home to yourselves, and they lost at Fulham on New Year's Eve as well, remember? So I think Arsenal fans' mood was equally as flat this time last year. Then they went on an incredible run. There's no point comparing the points. They will not need to get the points this season that they would have had to get in previous seasons because of City's fall off. And I think Liverpool, everyone's seen it. There is vulnerabilities there yesterday. What Arsenal, I think, are missing clearly, and also differences for them in terms of comparing their seasons. They had a long period without Odegaard, and now they're obviously going through a long period where they're going to be without Saka. Also worth saying they're without Havertz at the weekend, who I think in games like this where it's particularly tight, is arguably the Arsenal player that's most likely to come up with the moment in front of goal. They're missing at the moment kind of a bit of individualism, I think. Someone like, it's a bad example.
Saka.
Yeah, that's actually the best example. Someone like Saka who's going to really carry and run at the opposition. Yeah, and I think that's part why Nwaneri has played the last couple, is because he has that individual talent in him. He's obviously so young.
Yep.
He's now injured. He supposedly picked up a muscle problem, which is why he came off at half time. Otherwise, we'd have had to have a very real conversation about him at 4.5. So I think Arsenal are probably in a zone at the moment where they need to get through games. They're not going to frill unless they play someone like, checks notes, Tottenham go to the Emirates in Gameweek 21. Tottenham are going to go to the Emirates and try and beat them. Not going to go to the Emirates and go, we're going to sit here and take a 0-0. It is definitely adaptation I've seen in Tottenham over the last few games where we will give up possession a little bit more than what people expect. But for Arsenal to create chances against Tottenham, that's probably not going to be a problem. It is in other games that they'll have coming up. Like Villa at home might be one where Villa really weirdly seem much better defensively in a lot of the bigger games. We've seen that. You've seen Villa again concede a shitty goal at the weekend. So Villa might be a more difficult one to break down in Gameweek 22. They may add this window. It feels like they probably need to add something attacking wise. I think if you're sitting there and praying for Raheem Sterling to come back from injury and be the saviour, I don't think that's going to be it. But I also don't think like meltdown. No, you drew at Brighton. It's not like a meltdown moment. But also, I didn't watch the second half and fear that Arsenal were going to win the game. It was only when Arsenal had set pieces you think, shit, open play. There was no concern, but that weapon still exists for them in any game. I think Odegaard has kind of come through the adrenaline period where he first come back from injury and then you're working on adrenaline and now it's settling. And I think he's still a little bit short on fitness. It's no criticism of him. He had a bad injury and came straight back in. He is the one that they've got to rely on really to step up and provide that individual quality to run the game and really create. So they're missing that. Kind of a bit of an X factor at the moment, but I genuinely still wouldn't rule them out because they're strong defensively. And if it wasn't for the penalty decision, there's every chance here they walk away with a 1-0 victory and you go, that's good.
Anything from
Drawing at Brighton is not a disaster, man.
No, I get that. It's just the opportunity sometimes feels like you could have closed the gap a little bit on
Of
Liverpool and put
course,
the
but
pressure
then
on,
Arsenal fans would have been expecting Liverpool to win this weekend, and they
and they didn't.
didn't. So the
No.
weekend it's kind of ended the same as if Arsenal would have won and Liverpool had won. Now, would Arsenal fans be feeling negative if that had been the circumstance right now? Probably not in the same way, no. So I get it, missed opportunity. And I was thinking that Saturday night, if Liverpool drop points tomorrow, they're still going to feel gutted about this as a missed opportunity. Yeah, I don't think they should massively. I don't think drawing at Brighton is a disaster. I think there's every chance to go on a run now. And I think Liverpool fans would have watched that game yesterday and feel particularly nervous. For Brighton,
They've got a good next three: Ipswich United, Everton.
yeah.
Though
And
Ipswich have
and
been better
and
in the
then
last
Forest
couple.
Chelsea, and then there's good games again after that as well. Southampton away, and then sort of Bournemouth and Fulham at home are challenging, but as a cluster, it's fine. So you're looking again at Brighton up until the blank when they go to Manchester City, having a decent run of fixtures. Um, João Pedro is a really interesting one. I'd sold before the Villa game. He's obviously returned in the two games since. There's a penalty in now. There's an assist which is not questionable, but it kind of rubs off his shirt. And
Yep.
Adingra has scored at the game at Villa. One lovely assist for Tarek Lamptey. It's interesting. As soon as he scored, you're thinking, Jesus, he's such good value at that price. And then you remember that's the only goal he scored in how long?
In
It's
ages.
from the penalty spot. I don't know. Is he value at his price? Yes. Do I want to work around to get him back in? Like Ipswich away, I think is it's
I
challenging.
wouldn't.
Like
I wouldn't.
it's a
If
green
it,
fixture, but it's a challenge.
Yeah, they've been better the last couple. I wouldn't force him back in. If you own him like me,
No,
you
I don't
play.
think
There's no
so.
doubt about it. But I don't think he's the place to go to force a player back in. Fulham two, Ipswich two, like Raul and Delap, obviously both have returned in the last couple of games as well, and they might be better options at their prices than Pedro potentially is. Like I'll hold Pedro through the next three, and then I probably will move it on and try and find some value elsewhere. And either of these two might be the ones to look at. I mean, Raul was at 5.6. I think the lap's the same. Yeah, both 5.6. Whereas Pedro is up 5.7. So, yeah.
Jimenez was the forward I went to target this week. I'd said that if I was going to take a -4 to force Gordon in, it would have been Gordon in, and I'd have been going Jimenez in for Solanke. Now, 5 minutes in at White Hart Lane, I was thinking, well, I've done right there. Well, if I'd done it, I'd be 6 points up, including the hit, right? So
Yep.
now, admittedly, the second penalty obviously really helps at the end. And again, this is another one where Jimenez has scored two penalties. So I don't really want to chase that now because I've missed another good fixture in Ipswich. But you look at the next few: West Ham away, Leicester away, Manchester United at home. Again, similar good fixtures. You talk about João Pedro for free. I'd argue it's the same case for Jimenez. Then they go to Newcastle. Then they play Nottingham Forest. Then again, their run to the blank is not too bad. So you wouldn't kind of flip flop from Jimenez to João Pedro or vice
No.
versa.
No.
I don't think. Ironically, in the fourth fixture, by the way, Delap has Southampton at home. So Jimenez or João Pedro to Delap, ironically, in 4 weeks' time, might be the sort of move that you end up looking at, for
Yep.
example. I do think Jimenez largely is quite safe. I know there's been a lot of Muniz this, Muniz that. I
I
think
don't think
now that
so.
now that the Christmas fixtures are out the way, I think Jimenez will get the majority of minutes. It's interesting they played together for a while yesterday. And I think probably my big takeaway from this yesterday was I was surprised that Fulham stuck with the back three. I'd said to you that Diop made the mistake for the equaliser against Bournemouth, and that might have given Silva the excuse now to go to a back four. He's ripped that up at half time, gone to the back four. Then they've essentially ended the game with Muniz and Jimenez both playing up front. You're not going to see that too often. But I do think moving forward now, they'll go back to a back four. Diop will come out the team. Smith Rowe's obviously back available now. Andreas Pereira might leave this month. That's a possibility. Harry Wilson's been playing quite well lately and getting some decent returns. Could have got sent off, by the way, yesterday. You seen what he said to the ref?
No.
Just literally got in his face and called him an effing cheat. And
Really?
I think you can get sent off for that. I mean, it was a penalty, and I can understand why he was
Yeah, yeah.
angry. You cannot call a referee a cheat. You are
I didn't
really
see you
running
said
the risk
that.
of getting sent off. So I think they'll go back four. That will have a little bit of an impact potentially on Robinson Castagne. because I think clearly they have that left side bias. That won't disappear. It will just be done differently. So I don't think it's a huge impact on Robinson. I think it will have a bigger impact on Castagno. And the reason for that is because Fulham have that real bias on the left hand side, there was times they'd have the ball on the touchline and they'd have a build up and you're looking in the box and Castagno's alongside Jimenez in the box. The ball's not coming over. But you think if this goes over to the back post, he's got a real chance here. He's not arriving in the box. He's standing in the box as a wing back. That's not going to happen if he's a fullback.
Yep.
So that's a potential impact on Castagna. I do still think, however, if you want to invest in one of these guys, the difference now between Castagna and Robinson is large enough at zero point 0.8 difference. I would buy Castagna at this stage. But Robinson clearly has a higher ceiling of what he can be. I think other than those three players, I probably wouldn't be looking to invest in Fulham at this moment. I would still prefer to go Castagna over Anderson, despite that potential change to a back four coming. For Ipswich, the boy up front is great. Every time I watch him, I like him more and more, Liam Delap.
Yep, and he's getting better and better.
Really
I think
good.
he's adapting to the Premier League really well.
Took the penalty like a proper pro. He had that aura about him on scoring like that. Dispatches it, no problem. That's obviously two he's got in a couple of games. It is worth saying that his last goal in open play, i.e. not a penalty, was at Tottenham in game week 11.
Right.
So that's all he's got is two penalties since game week 11. So whether you want to invest in that is questionable. There's only one assist over that period since that game at Tottenham as well. But I do think there's every chance he'll have a pretty good end to the season. He's no when Hurst comes back and he's close, that's no major threat to Delap other than kind of very late in the game, as you saw with Al Hamidi yesterday. Amari Hutchinson's going to be out for around about a month. I think that's a blow for an Ipswich. Because I think he works really well at the top end. There is a danger for Delap that he becomes a little bit isolated in some games now, I think. But I also think he likes that. We saw that particularly in the Chelsea game. Defensively, it has come full circle where I think Jacob Greaves would be your boy if you want to go and invest. He's obviously now had a run of games where he's played 90 in the last three. And I think that probably sticks again. So in terms of looking for an enabling defender at your bottom prize, it is back to Jacob Greaves at 3.9 if that's what you need to do is the best one again. I think Christian Walton's 4.3. He's played the last couple of games. I wouldn't be diving into that.
Cool. Let's talk about Liverpool to Manchester United 2, James, because that's the last game of the 9 that we need to talk about. Again, like I think we talked briefly about Postecoglou and his reaction after the game. Amorim, on the other hand, had that balance of happy and disappointed at the same time, and probably portrayed it much better in disappointment that he hadn't seen it from his team previously, but glad that they'd had it on the day. Here's the thing, like you look at it and you say, right, okay, they've put fight into this game, right? They've put effort in, they've shown what they are capable of. I have zero trust in Man United to do the same again at Southampton next week. Zero. Like they could just go and be shit again next week. Like I haven't seen anything to show that they can consistently do it. They did well and beat Man City. And then what did they do? Went on a toilet run. They've done well against Liverpool, raised their game. Amorim's done well. I could just as easily see them go on a toilet run again for the next three. I have no trust in them at all. Whereas the opposite for Liverpool, like you said, United have exposed Liverpool's vulnerabilities. But I think Liverpool had a bad day at the office where I think I have absolute faith that they will be able to turn it around. Like Trent's positioning and play was really poor. But I don't think that he will continue to be poor. I think he'll be able to turn it around.
He might be out of the team.
Well, that's also true. He might be out of the club. I said it. He might be out of the club. Look. Yeah, I think Liverpool will turn it around. Like, their vulnerabilities did get exposed, sure, but I think Liverpool will be all right. Whereas United, let's see. But
let's
not take anything away though. They did great to go to.
No. And United, I mean, the Harry Maguire chance was an OMG moment at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's such a poor pass from Zirkzee. It's like he tries to put too much disguise on it. And then rather than playing it flat on the ground, it's bobbling. Like, it's not a difficult path. That's not actually, Maguire should still score, don't get me wrong, but the chance became more difficult than it should have been. On United, I would say Southampton next should be fine. But yeah, I think it's the games afterwards which look trickier, like Brighton at home, Fulham away, Palace at home, Tottenham away are then all ones where you can see them coming unstuck. It's not that, oh, you've played really well against Liverpool. The world is right. You've seen it. You mentioned the game at the Etihad, right? Although judging City against anything at the moment is a little bit weird. I don't think they have problems with Southampton. First and foremost, that's why some of the fantasy assets will appeal, like Amad Diallo, for example. Bruno Fernandes is obviously going to offer a solution. Those are the two, by the way. I wouldn't particularly want to look at much else at the moment. I do think that Diallo is probably worth the saving on Bruno Fernandes, but we know what the ceiling of what Bruno can be. And by the way, he was absolutely brilliant yesterday, Bruno Fernandes. I think with United, the key difference between that and Newcastle was, and we'd said it last week, we could not believe the midfield that Amorim picked against Newcastle, right? So Mino Agate and Bruno Fernandes back in that team, that's worlds of difference. That came in for Casemiro, Ericsson, and Xerxes from the starting change of lineups, right? So that midfield, that's a completely different ball game. So I've been the Newcastle game in a weird way because the biggest thing that Amrim should have learned over this last week is that with what he's got, one or two little tweaks, that's his team now. He was very open and honest and told us when he came and he said, you're going to see a lot of rotation. I don't think you're going to see quite so much now. Or at least when they have the bigger games, you're going to know this is close to what their best 11 is. I still think there are clear vulnerabilities in that. I think Matthias de Ligt is beginning to feel like a typical Manchester United signing of that's a big name. This plugs a gap, but actually it's one problem that's going to give us two later on. I think eventually Lenny Yoro will get in and take over from that, but he's still a young boy. He's a pup at the moment. They will want more out of their wing backs offensively. That's clear. And I think they'll want a new number 9 clearly as well. There are some links going around about Osimhen at the moment, who's on loan at Galatasaray. But there's some speculation that Conte is obviously at Napoli, potentially would be happy to take Rashford. And it might put Osimhen to United on the table at the same point. United, we think, can't really do that sort of deal unless they get something like Rashford off the wages.
Payroll, yeah.
Money in football on Thursday is covered. So you might get a little bit of change in terms of composition. You put Osimhen ahead of Fernandes and Diallo, right? Suddenly that becomes dangerous. If you get a wing back who can be more offensive, that'll be interesting. I thought Dallo was particularly great yesterday. What I really liked about his performance was that he was aggressive. He was under clear instruction. Don't be scared of Trent. Take him on. And then to flip the conversation here to Liverpool, the scariest thing about Trent Alexander Arnold's performance yesterday was that he was getting mugged so badly by Diogo Dalot, not by Garnacho taking him on one-on-one. And I thought that Amorim was absolutely right to get Garnacho on and chase that side of the pitch because Liverpool looked so vulnerable. To give Trent a little bit of grace here, Robertson was really bad on the left-hand side as well. I thought Konate looked short of fitness. I thought he did okay. The only Liverpool player I thought had been up to the standards of what I'd seen so far this season was Alexis McAllister. I actually thought Gravenberch, who's been outstanding, by the way, struggled at points yesterday as well. They suffered with little basics. They looked like nerves had hit them a bit yesterday. And maybe it was a surrounding of the game's so important to Liverpool and then expectation of what it's going to be. It's not the first time we've gone into a Liverpool United game expecting Liverpool to absolutely volley them, and they haven't. It's times when we haven't expected it so much. Like United, when they lost 7-0 at Anfield, was just off the back of having won the Carabao Cup. People weren't expecting that sort of result that day. So I think for Liverpool, the nervous nature of yesterday was concerning. On a serious, from a fantasy perspective, Conor Bradley is back fit. And if Trent plays like that again, he will not stay in the team. You can't, because abysmal. And same will potentially go for Robertson on the other side as well. It could well be that Shimikas and Bradley play more over this upcoming period. So for me, I'm looking at Trent next week and going, James. I don't even. well, left back. Yeah, I don't think they'd buy a right back. Left back, they might buy. Um, I'm looking at Trent next week. I'm not even certain he starts at Nottingham Forest. Now, there's information to learn, right? Trent might play at Tottenham on Wednesday night, do really well, and put it back in the bed. But unfortunately, the narrative will be there because of the Real Madrid links that he just did not look right yesterday. And I don't even feel comfortable saying that because I don't think I don't look at Trent and think, oh, you're not putting the effort in. But definitely was his head not in the right place yesterday. And that's weird if that's the case.
It was cold, James.
Yeah, it was cold, but the problem with Trent is like technically we know how good he is, but positionally there was
Can be
one in the
bad.
first half where the ball got played down the left hand side, and he wasn't just like deeper than the rest of his back line. He was playing in a different city. He was so deep. That's a concentration problem and a positional problem. Um, yeah, I generally think that there's a chance that he could come out the team.
We
And
shall
people will
see.
want it for the double, quite clearly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn over.
Ex-
I'm now sticking with the two in Trent and Salah. I'm not adding a third until I know what I want to do because I also think you've got to keep that suggestion of the assistant manager chip up your sleeve as well. As if you're going to do that, then you don't really want to add a third. Liverpool,
I don't want to use it on slot in 24 to 26. I'm not a
no,
big fan of it
no.
personally.
I just
I
don't.
think
I
there'll be
don't
better
think we'll
opportunities.
know. Yeah, possibly, but then I've still got to use your. I've still got to use my bench boost. Still
I
got to use
know,
my free
and
hit.
mine's
Still got to use my
gone. I
wild
get that.
card, and it's like what. It's tricky, and I need to see obviously what happens with free hit in 29 as well because that's another consideration at the moment.
I think Kanate back at 5.1 is worth the saving versus Trent. It's worth the saving versus Van Dijk. It's worth the saving versus Robertson. I think Allison obviously offers an alternative in goal as well. In terms of the attacking positions, Nunes is suspended against Forest. So you do know that if Jota comes on this time, he probably will play higher. But at the moment, it feels like that it will be, or if he comes on. But something could change this week. Like I said, if a Diaz or a Gakpo suddenly got injured, Jota is going to look like an outstanding option. So I don't really want to cut that till I've got more information. I think when it comes to it, I think Jota better than Diaz. He's still my instinct 23 to 25. But I think Gakpo needs taking really, really seriously now. And like I said, that's a potential route for me from Jackson or Solanke. And that's the number one reason why I might not buy Kanate this week. I might go say with Munoz instead. Because I'm definitely convinced that I want to go Trent to Kanate. I know what Trent's capability is. If he stays in the team, he can have the 15-point haul like West Ham last week. My eyes weren't deceived by it. I regret buying him. He was not worth the money. I still said that after the returns against West Ham next week. And I wouldn't be invested. You got to even look at it now over a period of like, oh, I want a player to play twice over doubles. Like Bradley's back now. And Connor Bradley came on and seemed to show real intensity once he got on that pitch yesterday. He's not like a weak link. If he plays for Liverpool, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely food for thought around Trent there.
And if
He's
Trent
got
did go to Real
market.
Madrid this month, buy Connor Bradley, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, for
Probably be the
sure.
advice.
Nice. Good, good. Cool. That's a wrap on the game shows. Obviously, you've mentioned that you'll cover off Wolves versus Nottingham Forest on Wednesday with Clayton. I am going to pull out a couple of questions that we had in on Twitter then to end the show.
Go, mate.
And you may have one or two on Blue Sky as you sometimes dig out. Shout out to Bruno, FPL Bruno. Bruno obviously plays in our five-a-side team whenever we go to the juice competitions and team South as well. So you get special privileges in getting your question answered for sure. Optimal front three, he says, James, as a Salah owner. It's got to be Isak, surely, right now. With the fixtures, you've got to say Jimenez. Who would you have third in there? Or what would you say would be as a
What's in three
Salah owner?
forwards?
Yeah, optimum front three.
The thing is,
Isak.
the optimum front three this week might not be the optimum front three next week. I think right now, if I was on wild card and I was going for a front three, I think for me it would possibly be Isak, Mateta, Gakpo.
Gakpo, yeah? You think
I think so, maybe,
he's
yeah.
playing well, he's finishing well. I think I'd go Isak, Jimenez, And then I don't mind your Gakpo shout, actually, to
I
be honest
wouldn't
with you. So,
discount Havertz as well. He's kind of out of sight, out of mind the last couple, but he'll come back in. There's no doubt about that. So I think maybe Havertz. Jackson, again, I got him in at a period where he was doing quite well. So I get those who kind of followed that later and be like, what's all this about? His underlines aren't terrible still. I'm not like desperate to get rid of it at this moment, but I can see like one or two more blanks and it'll be like, yeah, I need to deal with that. So
FPL Guardia says, would you prioritize Gordon or Wood for the upcoming game weeks? I think
Gordon.
Gordon. I don't regret buying Wood, but I think had I taken a step back to the beginning of the week, I might have made a different decision. So I would say Gordon, and James says Gordon as well. So that's a
Yeah,
clear answer.
bar the Southampton game in 22, which will certainly appeal. Don't Woods fixtures aren't great up until the blank.
Okay.
I can foresee a lot of Nottingham Forest games be low scoring. Admittedly, as we covered so much in the first half of the season, if he gets to one and they win 1-0, he's going to walk away with a 9-pointer. And there's always that with him. But no, I know there was kind of a lot that wanted to go to Wood this week. It was never on radar for me. If I'd have bought a forward this week in for, say, Solanke, it would have been Jimenez, is where I would have gone. I wouldn't be chasing Wood this week, despite what we saw from Liverpool this week. Again, Wood owners should hold, right? There's no panic and sell, but I'm not chasing that.
Jacob says, hi guys. Over the weekend, I went top of the Planet FPL League. That's the Open League, James, not the Patreon League, to have to everybody.
Nice.
So nice one for sending in your question. He said 138 overall rank. I had a cheeky look. He's at 157 overall. Would you change the way you're playing to try and win the whole thing by taking more risks or stick with what's been working?
It's too early.
It's too early is exactly my answer as well.
In that
right
position,
now,
it's too early. Crack on.
Just carry on as you are just get to like game week 34, 35. And then in the last 3 weeks, you can have a decide on whether you want to sprint or not and see what the kind of gap is. A lot of questions around Trent, James. A lot of questions around Trent. Not necessarily is he worth the money over Konate or what have you, because we clearly answered that. Should Liverpool let him go? It got quite heated between Sturridge and Carragher and stuff on the show after the game.
It was also a little bit amateur hour as well, I should say.
It was stupid. But it is fair. Would you take the 30 or 40 million now and just let him go? Because I still am confused as to why Real Madrid would bother bidding if they know they can get him for free in the summer.
Look, if he's going to perform like he played yesterday, yeah. I can't personally believe that Trent wants to leave Liverpool now. If he wants to go in the summer and have the new challenge and play for Real Madrid, I think great. I also think it's worth saying as well. I think a lot of players have cottoned on that if they're ever going to go to Real Madrid, running down their contracts is now the best way to do it, because Real Madrid are not looking like they're going to spend 100 million on players at the moment. They'd rather invest the money into the free transfer, and then you get your big massive contracts and stuff as well. So, but I don't know with the position Liverpool are in at the moment. I would be staggered if we were sitting there now and saying Trent Alexander Arnold wants to go to Real Madrid right now. I can't. I will not have that. I can't believe that's true. And I think there's probably just a lot going on around him yesterday, and his concentration was off. Hopefully, it gives him the kick up the arse, and you get back to the player that you know he can be. Like, I saw him at Tottenham a few weeks ago. There was nothing wrong with his performance. He was great, right? It looked like, the really good version of Trent that we know is there. So, but yesterday was disastrous. He looked like, you were looking at him. I'm sure nearly everybody was watching the game thinking they've got to get him off the pitch. Like, it was that bad. And that's remarkable for probably the most talented player in the world in his position. Probably what he is why Real Madrid want to get him, right? Real Madrid might have watched that yesterday and gone, we ain't bothering no more. We've just withdrawn their bid. They've just withdrawn the contract. I think he'll sort it out. I'm pretty sure Trent surely must be desperate to win that title this year and be a part of those celebrations at the end if it happens. Surely.
I would agree. End of the season, go for free. John Ame, I saw you wanted Raul Jimenez, James, and I put him in on my wild card, and I finished on 82 points this game week, 23k overall rank. Safe to say your podcast has been really helpful, and he hasn't missed an episode in months now. obviously we're experts, aren't we? So, that's how it goes.
No, boss.
Well done, John, is all I would say. And
Well done, John.
you are the one that pushes the button. So
That's right.
take the credit yourself. Right, we'll wrap with one last question, James, from Sebastian Hasselberg, which we didn't discuss. But he just says captain. Feels wide open. Salah, Palmer, Isak, and he's also put Bruno Fernandes in there as well. What are your current thoughts on captain for this coming game week? Salah is Forest away. Palmer, Bournemouth at home. Isak, Wolves at home. And then Bruno, Southampton.
Yeah. Taking on Mo at the moment, I've been clear for a number of weeks. You need a very, very good reason to take him on. That reason is potentially offered by Nottingham Forest being an outstanding defensive unit that won't allow up a lot of space. I think there are choices that we've had in some of the more recent weeks that have been better than what we've got in 21. The one that I'll be looking at is Isak. And I'll be watching Wolves quite closely tonight. And that may well have a big bearing and impact in terms of what I decide. Isak now, by the way, I think he's scored, check this please, Suj. Has he scored in 7 in a row?
7 in a row, and I think it's 9 in 7 or 10 in 7, something along those lines.
Okay, but is it 7 consecutive Premier League games he's scored in?
Yeah.
Right, these next 4 games, there's 3 at St James's, Wolves, Bournemouth, Fulham. And we spoke very highly about Bournemouth and Fulham this season, but still at St James's Park. And the other game is Southampton away. Right, if he scores in all those 4, he equals Vardy's record. Is that right?
Yes. Vardy's record is 11.
Right, this is going to become a story soon. Possibly. It really could. Would you back against him scoring in all them 4 games?
No. I'll back him to score in every game. And then 7 in a row. James is 10 in 12. 10 games of the last 12 he scored in. He had 2 blanks prior, and he didn't start one of them, which was Crystal Palace. So he scored in 10 out of his last 11 starts.
Yeah. I think, and they're flying at the moment. They've got the kind of strongest team on the pitch, bar Pope.
Like, obviously, it's a midweek set of fixtures. Manchester United play on the Thursday. So they've got the most time, I guess, from their FA Cup game. Are you factoring anything from the timing of the games or not really?
No, but I mean, again, you would. The opponent's quite important, right? There's a few teams playing Thursday this week. I mean, like Everton. I mean, Fulham are playing Thursday night. But Manchester United, as an example, again, if you want to go early for Fernandes and Diallo, right, cool, right, be my guest. But they're probably both starting at the Emirates on Sunday. Like, I'd rather wait till that's out of the way. Whereas Newcastle, it feels like get through tomorrow night, and then does Isak and Gordon play against Bromley in the FA Cup? They shouldn't, right? Would probably be the point. Sit on the bench, they're there if you need them.
That's a Sunday game, right?
Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle.
Yeah, but they shouldn't play, should they?
No, you're right. And it's at home as well.
There's an opportunity to get people like Will Asula if he's fit and stuff like that, some game time and stuff like that might be useful for Newcastle. That's the game. Newcastle go strong at Arsenal, rotate against Bromley, then strong again for Wolves, you'd imagine. So from there, you've probably got, hopefully, an 8-day gap for the likes of Isak and Gordon going into that Wolves game. Again, I would rather get Newcastle's cup game out the way before I commit to buying Anthony Gordon. But yeah, to go back to your captaincy, I think Isak against Wolves is the one that I'm looking at that, yeah, maybe. I wonder if there's a psychological tempter as well, because when I look at the forthcoming weeks afterwards, like when Liverpool play Brentford, Ipswich, Bournemouth, Wolves, I think, no, I don't want to take him on at all. So I know like this is the one. If I want to take Mo on,
I'm not going to lie. I had that same last week when Palmer had Ipswich and Salah had West Ham. It was like, where am I finding the odd opportunities to take him on? And
you don't have to, to go back to.
You can also just go with him. Yeah, he scored returned again yesterday, 7 points.
Yeah, so. If you think he's going to be the top boy again, don't go against him for the sake of it, right? I think Gameweek 21 does offer an opportunity. My personal take is, of the alternatives, Isak is the standout one.
Yep. Good. Okie dokie, James. We'll wrap the pod there. We've been going for a while.
Won't. You said I could take something from Blue Sky.
Oh, Blue Sky.
I'll take one. Javet says, I'm on triple Arsenal defence. Hold or sell one?
Sell one. particularly when there's other value, like if you haven't got Hall or Munoz or Robinson, there are three players there that probably offer you better value.
What if you're on double?
I'm not adding double. So I probably, but with that in mind, maybe come off. But it depends where you're going. I've got too strong a defence right now with Gabriel, Trent, Gvardiol, Rico Lewis, and Lewis Hall, and I'm looking at adding Munoz for Rico Lewis. That's too good a defence. So what have you got? If you've got double Arsenal defence, let's assume it's not Raya as a goalkeeper. Let's assume it's two defenders. Have you got one good defender and two shit ones, or have you got two other good ones? It's 50-50 for me if you're on double. If you're on triple, definitely go down to two. If you're on double, 50-50. If you're on one, just, don't lose the one, whether it's Gabriel or whoever you've got. But yeah, I'm very 50-50 on whether it's two. Depends on who your other defenders are.
Okay. Oh, a couple of things for you, right? Arsenal got two home games coming up, right? Who was the last away team to score at the Emirates?
Who was the last away team? Brentford.
No, to score at the Emirates.
No. Oh, sorry. That's a good question. I'm looking here. I'm cheating and looking, and I have to look back a long way, James. Liverpool in game week 9.
And it's worth saying they were a bit broken that day defensively, right? Gabriel went off injured. Saliba was suspended. Timber was unavailable.
And Liverpool are bloody good.
So it's 4 consecutive clean sheets at home for Arsenal. Their next 2 games are at home. I have no intention to move them now. There is possibly a conversation to be had, I think, after that. If you're on 3, I completely get wanting to move off 1. If you need to do it for value purposes, like Raya to Pickford or Raya to Henderson to open something up, I also understand that. But I wouldn't be attacking selling them for the sake of selling them. Also, because they are lacking that individualism, I think, in a lot of their play at the moment, their concentration remains very high defensively. Ultimately, if João Pedro gets that penalty, they, as said, they possibly win that game 1-0. Brentford's XG last week was really low against Arsenal. I'll tell you what it was. It was 0.29. They conceded 0.16 XG at Fulham. Fulham had 2 shots in that game. So the only other one where their XGC has been bad was the 5-1 victory at Crystal Palace, and you also understand that they was in a position of clear dominance. So I wouldn't come off for the sake of concern about Arsenal. If you're doing it for money, fine. Otherwise, I think stick.
Okie dokie. Got another one from Blue Sky, or that's a wrap, James?
Nah, that'll do.
Lovely, jubbly. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Planet FPL. Do what you got to do, which is leave us some comments on YouTube with the subscribe button hit as well, or a review wherever you're listening to the podcast. But other than that, most importantly, stay safe, look after yourselves. I hear there's a lot of bugs going around in England at the moment with sickness and stuff, so really do stay well, and we'll be back at you across the week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way. Cue music, please. Man child.